Now, one of the most exotic ways to get into a property, you could say, is to ram raid it. Yes, you heard that right, ram raid it. This is definitely going to be one of those lectures I don't demonstrate how to do it, but tell you how to do it. And you can very simply work the details. It's not hard. I explain things thoroughly and easily, so you don't have to see a demonstration in many of my lectures. So RAM rating, right? RAM rating. We're not talking about people being home. We're not even talking about a homelessness situation. You're not going to use a ram raid technique if you're homeless, because if you've got a car, you could probably live out of that and sleep in that. Okay, so a ram raiding maneuver in an urban survival situation would encompass, again, a war, a civil war, a worldwide war, societal collapse, catastrophe. You've got to get your kids under a shelter, all that sort of stuff. It's definitely not something that you'd take lightly, as in a measure. You're not just going to go, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm homeless. I'm just going to choose that house and drive into it. That's not what this is. So let me give you an idea of what I mean. If for some reason you can't breach a property because it's just unbreachable from the outside, you may be injured. There may be several factors that limit you from executing the maneuvers I've thus far showed you in all the videos. Keeping in mind, everything I've showed you in all the videos thus far is probably all you'll ever need to know to get into a property. Save lockpicking, which we'll get into later. Remembering that it's not an essential, it's just a skill, and a good skill that you could have, but absolutely not essential. The essentials I've covered just at the first parts. So again, remember, this is a maneuver you'd carry out in exceptional circumstances. Again, it's for some reason the property you're looking at is unbreachable. It's ideal. It's in the middle of buttfuck nowhere, but it's perfect. You just know that you could stay there and really shelter and protect yourself. But for some reason you can't get in. It's just unbreachable, or like I said, you're injured. There are many factors. So you've got the option of a ram raid. Now, here's the twist. Well, it's not really a twist. Here's the trick, I should say. You've got to... I would not advise you driving into, head on, the property. Reverse into it. Okay, that's one. You don't reverse. You don't drive head on into the property where your fucking windshield is and objects could... You just don't know. Objects could fall into you. You reverse into it. So when you ram raid something in this way, a house, to secure shelter for survival purposes, you reverse into it. And you reverse into it at speed. You reverse into it at about 10 or 15 k's an hour. Using Newton's law, unless the fucking place that you want to stay at is fucking Fort Knox, it's probably going to give. Especially if it's a weatherboard house or the likes. 2, you've got to choose a part of the house that's not susceptible. In other words, a non-load bearing point of the facade of the house. You don't want to ram raid the corner of a house. You don't want to ram raid parts of the house you know there will be load bearing walls. Ideally, you want to ram raid it in such a way that you're only going to minimally impact one part of the house, but at whole, its structural integrity will remain intact. Now, I'm not going to this is not about forces. I'm not going to start drawing on the wall with textures and doing fucking all the bunch of formulas you need to know about Newton's law and point loads and blah, 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 blah. Just use your common sense, visualize the place, ascertain where it's least likely to collapse, where it's going to have minimal impact. Usually, that's on a part of the house that looks like it has a wide, not a wide facade, but you could say a lounge room, its width, or similar to a lounge room in its width. You want to drive into something with that width, and you want to drive into the middle of it. As long as there are no structural columns, there are no structural parts or load-bearing walls, because all the rest of the house is usually connected to each other as one very structural unit, and where all load-bearing walls connect to some degree or another. So you want to attack, or reverse into, I should say, a part of a house, the part of the place that looks like it's not going to be compromised whatsoever, or that there are no structural entities evident. Okay? And once you do that, once you reverse into it at about 10 to 15 k's an hour, 20 even better, you're not going to get hurt. Not at 20 k's an hour, and you're prepared for it, and you're reversing into it. So once you reverse into it desirably at 20 k's an hour, then what happens after that, you've got your rear end of the car sticking into the property. Now here's the beauty of it. If you're staying in there for the long term, and it's a car that you're not going to use again, or it's for some reason won't dislodge from where you hit the house, noting that you'll have to forfeit that car in that survival situation, you can turn your car into the front door. So it's very simple. To lock the house, you lock your car. To get into the house, you go through your car. Now, obviously, you can then go inside and unlock the house from the insides and all that. That's true. But you can also keep them all locked so other people can't come in, and the only way for people to get in is through the car. Now, most people aren't going to solve that. They're just going to look at the car and think, oh shit, car in a house. I probably can't get into the house through the car, or it'll be dangerous. So there are many ways you could turn that car being in the house from the rear into a defense mechanism, into a defense weapon. Because anybody who tries, and we're talking about a real volatile situation of urban survival, anyone who tries to come into the house and eventually works out they can go through the car will still have to creep through the broken window of the rear of the car. And that gives you an advantage to protect yourself by whatever means. Especially if you've got a family in the house, and that's why you had to do it in the first place. So that is a unique way to breach a property in a survival situation, reversing into it at speed.